Hello mate, and welcome to another exciting episode of our Unity VN season. What we're going to do this week, or this episode, is we're going to create a method that allows us to have our images fade in and out rather than just appearing on the screen. And unfortunately, our current method of showing images is not compatible with this. So what we need to do is, firstly, we're going to create a new empty game object called image layers, like so, and that's the only property that we're going to have for that. This is a container basically, and the reason that we have to do this is that we're going to have to create a prefab of an image layer that is created every time we put an image on the screen, i.e. the current situation that we have is that every time we put an image on the screen we replace the previous image, i.e. we've got this white background image in our background image layer there, and presently it's colored white with no sprite on it. We assign a different sprite to it. Now that's not going to work for us to be able to do transitions. What we're going to have to do to create transitions is we're going to have to create a new image layer for every single image that we place on the screen, so that we can fade or fade in or out the images on top of ones that were there previous. It's easier than it sounds, trust me, but it's going to take a little bit of work. So we have our background image here already, so we don't need to mess around and change that. But what we are going to have to do is create a script which we're going to assign to it, and then we're going to create a prefab from that. So in our project, inside our scripts, what we're going to do is we are going to create a new C# script, and we're going to call it image instance, like so, and then we're going to open up our code. Now that we are inside our image code, we need to add a new library without adding extra characters. We're going to say using Unity engine.ui, because we're going to be referencing UI components. Next thing we want to do is get rid of this line here, and we're going to replace it with a public float, and we're going to call it fade in speed, and we're just going to set that to 1 second for now, 1f. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to say hang on, why didn't that add a semicolon there? I pressed the button and it didn't do it. Never mind. Okay, next thing we're going to do is public bool, and we're going to have fade in and fade out being booleans, and I'm going to make those small f's just so. No, do you know what? I'm going to leave them as capitals. Why the heck not? Now we need to do private game object. I'm going to call this gObject, and that we also need to reference the image. So we're going to say private image, this image, like so. Cool. So we've got the variables that we need. Now what we have to do is actually tell Unity what these variables reference. So gObject is nice and easy. gObject equals this dot game object. Nothing too complicated so far. Now we're going to say this image equals this dot game object dot get component dot image. There we go. See, the editor knows what we want to do. Trust in the editor. Now we're going to say if fade in, and we're going to start a small method, and we're going to say color C. We'll just give it a temporary variable C. This image dot color. So we're setting this variable to whatever color the image currently is, which should be white, but either way. Now we're going to say c.a equals 0. So we're setting the image's alpha to 0, i.e. we're making it invisible. Now we're going to say this image dot color equals c. Now we're going to have to create a coroutine that allows us to actually do anything, because if we were to just leave it in there, what would happen is it would loop and it just get messy. So a coroutine is a routine or a method that runs alongside everything else. So it will continue to run in the background at the same time as the rest of our code, so it will not hold up our code. So we're going to call this start coroutine, fade in routine, and fade in speed is the number that we're going to send. And we've got too many D's there, so let me just get rid of that and add a semicolon there. Now obviously we actually need to create our coroutine, so I'm going to copy that name. I'm going to come down to below our void update method, like so. And then we're going to create an IEnumerator fade in routine, and it's going to take in the float image delay. And I'm going to spell image delay just so I have a freaking clue what I'm actually doing. And then we create it. So now this is our coroutine. This is the thing that's going to run. We're going to set it running. It's a fire and forget kind of thing, as we say run that, and then it will just run it and do whatever it needs to do, but it won't interfere with the running of the rest of our code. Okie dokie, so color C equals this image dot color, and we're going to say no, this is where things get a little bit more involved. Float alpha equals 0f. Alpha is less than or equal to 1f. I know I put a typo in there. So what we're saying is the alpha is 0. As long as the alpha is less than or equal to 0, then we are going to add alpha plus equals 0.05f. And that should be good. I just remember we don't need to put a semicolon there. So that's what's going to happen there. And we're going to say c.a equals alpha. This image dot color equals C. And then we have to, in order to make this coroutine work, we have to actually yield a return of something. So we say yield return, spelling return correctly, new, and we have to spell yield correctly. Goodness me. Yield return new. Wait 4 seconds. Image delay. And did I use that? No, that's because I spelled that entirely incorrectly. My goodness, I am having a typo nightmare today. Image delay, and we're going to divide that by 20. And the reason we're doing that is because 20 times 0.05 is 1 second. So we're using these numbers to control the speed of the fade, which is not too bad, okay? So we can add a semicolon to the end of that, and then at the end of this, we're going to say c.a equals 1.0f, and then we're going to say this image dot color equals C one more time, and we're just making absolutely sure that it's set to 1 and that it's not below it or above it, essentially, okay? Because this loop will actually cancel out one step before the final addition. So we're just going to set it to be completely opaque, and then that's that done. Right, so what we can do is we can pretty much copy and paste this to make a fade out routine as well. So we're going to go Control C, Control V. So now what we're going to say instead is alpha is 1, alpha is greater than or equal to 0f, and alpha is minus equal, and everything else remains exactly the same, except now instead of setting the image to 0, what we're actually going to do is destroy the game object. Okay, so just to be clear, we make sure we understand what's happening here. When we do a fade in routine, we're going from the image being completely invisible to it being completely opaque, basically. Then what we need to do is when we fade out an image, we don't want it to just fade out and sit there being invisible using up memory. So what we want to do is actually destroy the game object once the fade out has completed. So that's precisely what we're doing here. We're starting at an alpha of 1. We're going down to an alpha of 0 over a 1 second period, 20 there. You can adjust these numbers if you want to make it slower or faster, entirely up to you. Or you could even use the fade in speed to change the speed of the fade effect. And that's basically it. That's all we need to do inside this script. So what we can do, we can also do like a, just for a bit of fun, a public void, and we'll call it kill me. And then we'll just say start coroutine fade out routine. There you go. Nice and easy. And we actually have to put that into speech marks like that. I don't know why the editor insists on doing that, but we'll just rectify that. There we go. And we also have to do the same thing up in this one. No, we don't actually have to do it here. No, we don't. That's fine. Okay, cool. So that's our script for our image instance. We're going to save that, and then we're going to come back to our editor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to assign this image instance script to our background image, like so. And as you can see, our public properties, fade in speed, fade in and fade out, are bools. Now I've left them public so that we can control them from other scripts, but they don't actually need to be within view in the editor. So what we can do if we want to is we can actually hide them. So we could just go to not serializable or anything like that. You can put a command in there to remove them from the hierarchy if you want to. I'm not going to bother just because it's, you know, I know I'm not going to mess around with them. However, if you think that that might be a risk, then by all means feel free to make those changes as necessary. So now we need to make some extensive changes to our script which actually shows the image. So I'm going to minimize my script here, and what I'm going to do is inside my assets folder, we're going to create a new folder, and this one's going to be called prefabs, and then we're going to drag our background into the prefabs folder, and as you can see that has now created a prefab, which means I can now delete that and delete the background image layer, and we've got our image layers there. Now we need to come back into our image text decoder, or our input decoder script, because we've got a bunch of stuff that we now need to add to that. Cool, so here we are inside our show image script, and we're going to make some changes. The first thing we need to do is we're going to choose a string. I'm going to go for image to show, and we're going to set that to null. And we're also going to say bool fade effect equals false. So currently it's set to false. Nice and easy. Cool. Now we're going to have our second regex. We're going to say var image to use transition equals new reg expression. And in this one, we're going to say show, open a bracket, question mark, image file name, same as in the prior command. And we're going to say use anything is acceptable inside this variable. So we're just going to use the upwards arrow and the dot there. And then we're going to add a plus after that, like so. Once we've got that, just make sure that I haven't made any typos, which I blatantly have. We need to put that there, and then we need to put that at the end there. And next part of our command, I'm just going to close that off to get rid of that error. Next part of our command is going to be a with statement. Let's just get rid of that there. That space there is messing things up. So the next thing we say is with, and then another space. And now we're going to say new transition name. And close that off. And like before, we're going to allow every type of character to be used in that file name. Nice and simple. Nice and simple regular expression there. And we can leave the matches, image to use, string to pass the same. And we've now got to create a new one called var alt matches equals image to use transition dot match string to pass. So now we're comparing both of these statements. If it matches this one, then we're also going to use that one. And if it matches this one, then we're going to use that one. So now I want to say if alt matches dot success, we're going to say image to show equals alt matches dot groups, and we're going to say image file name is going to be our first group name, like that. We're going to get rid of this because the editor did it for us, to string. Nice and easy. Fade effect. Don't know why I've got a W in there. I'll sort that out in a minute. Equals true. Get rid of that W. There you go. I'm making typos like a good one today. So we've set the fade effect now to true. And now we're going to say else if matches dot success image to show equals matches groups file name to string. So we can just cut that from there, paste that in there, and then get rid of that because we don't need to declare it as a string anymore because we do that up here. Nice and simple. Okay, so we have now set our wheels in motion, shall we say, to getting the fade in effect sorted. So what we've done here is we've created a second option for our show command. And if we say show an image file name with transition name, I actually need to put a space in there and get rid of the space from there. Not sure why I did that. I'm going to say show the image file name with transition name. Happy days. Everybody happy with that so far? I do actually need to put another apprentice at the end there. There we go. That's what that weird underline error was for there. Fade effect is currently not used, but we'll get round to that. Nice and easy. I'm going to put a capital F at the start of that as well, just to make sure. There we go. That we are all good. Happy days. Right, next bit is we actually need to create a new game object. So I'm going to leave that line there just for a moment, but we're going to say game object picture instance is equal to game object dot instantiate and image. There we go. No, we don't want image instance, we want image inst. We don't want to reference the class, we want to reference an object that we're going to define. Next thing we need to do is we need to say picture instance dot transform dot set parent is going to be canvas dot transform false. And we need to make that small c because we're going to have to add some values to the top of our script. In fact, let's go and do that now, otherwise things are going to get a little bit confusing. So at the top, underneath our properties here, what we're going to do is we're going to say private static game object called canvas, and it's going to be game object dot find image layers. Now you remember that empty game object that we created where a few minutes back we're now telling our code that that game object is the game object that we're going to use as our canvas for our UI. We're also going to set another private static game object, and we're going to call it image inst, and it's going to be resources dot load. I spelled resources wrong, that's why that's not working. Resources dot load prefabs. I think I named my folder with a capital P, so I'm just going to say prefabs / background as game object. Cool. Happy days. Right, okay. So we've now told Unity that the parent of all of our image layers is going to be this game object called image layers, and we've told it that the prefab that we're going to use is in the folder prefabs, which we have created, and it's background with a capital B. There you go. Nice and easy, yeah? Not as complicated as you think it is. It's just learning the relationships between all of this stuff. Can be a bit cumbersome at times, but overall, nothing too stressful. Okay. Now we've got that property set up. Now what we're going to say is picture instance dot get component, and the component we are looking for is going to be an image instance, which is down there. That is oh balls. Type that in the wrong image instance. That's the code. That's the script that we've attached to the game object, and we're going to say fade in equals fade effect. So now we're saying is if fade effect is true, which we set it here, if the command matches this one here, then we're setting fade effect to true. Otherwise, it stays false. So what we're saying is show the image with this property. This property is going to be set by our code, and if it is true, if we go back to our image instance code, you can remember that we do indeed start our coroutine. If fade in, start the coroutine, fade in speed. There we go. Happy days. Right, now we need to do a couple of other things. We need to say picture instance dot image. Get component. Sorry, we have to reference the component. Get component image like that, and then we're going to set its color. Is going to be color.white, because we want its opacity to be 100%. We want it to show the image correctly. And then we're going to say picture instance dot get component image sprite. We're going to set the sprite is going to be equal to resources dot load sprite with a capital S, and we're going to be looking in the images folder / and then we need to add plus image to show. So that's where that variable gets used, in case you were wondering. Okay, deep breath in, folks. We've got the fade in to happen, nice and easy. So if we save all of our code, now realistically, if I were to go into our testing script and where we currently show, let's just say show with fade, we're not actually checking at the moment to see what this effect is. We're just checking to see if there is one that exists. So realistically, what we should see when we run our code, provided that we don't have any errors in, what you might find is that we need to move the prefabs into our resources folder, like so. And as you can see, when I run the script currently, it has indeed created our background image, and it is in the correct place. And as you can see, the sprite is actually in the correct place as well. However, we can't see the dang thing, which is something of an issue. And if we look at the alpha, you can see the alpha is 100% correct as well. And what I think is our problem is that it is set to the wrong sorting layer. So what we also need to do is something that a step that I actually forgot, is we actually need to create, this needs to be a canvas. So we're going to delete it. We're going to create a new UI canvas. I'm going to call it image layers. Again, remembering to spell it correctly. So capital I, capital S. And then in here, we need to create some stuff. We need to change some stuff. So first we're going to change the render mode from screen space overload to screen space camera, and then we're going to assign our main camera to its camera. And then in sorting layer, we're going to click on that and we're going to set it to background images, and that should be everything we need to do to get our fade ins to work. So if I now hit the play button, what we should see is boom, our image hath faded in. Nice and simple, yeah? So that about wraps it up for this episode, guys. In the next episode, we will probably look at how to fade out the images and clear the screen so that we can put a scene command into our code which removes all of the images except for the one that we're about to show so that we don't get any weird and wacky stuff happening. Hope you found that useful, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will see you in the next one, but until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, alright? Bye-bye.